Yeah.
Welcome back to the Not Televised Revolution, the only show on the internet willing to actually cut his skull open to give you a piece of his mind. And that actually hurts quite a bit. So please, this is a public service announcement. Please like and subscribe to your favorite YouTubers and leave comments and, most importantly to us, actually, questions.
Absolutely. The only show on the internet that drops it an inch deep and a mile long.
That's right. I mean, it doesn't matter what you have; it matters how you use it.
You know, sometimes I think to myself, I'd like to crawl myself down that rabbit hole. So,
what kind of rabbits are you into exactly?
I don't know what you're talking about. What happened?
So, of course, we like to make people feel welcome before we start digging into the news. I'm gonna get into it if you're ready.
I'm down. Let's do this.
All right. Deutsche Bank's week from hell just got worse after reported links with Epstein and a U.S. probe into its role in the 1MDB scandal. So, my dude, what is the 1MDB scandal?
Okay, it's the One Malaysia Development Barrett scandal.
Okay.
What went down is in Malaysia, 2015 or 2016, approximately. The prime minister embezzled a whole bunch of money from a development, a Malaysian development, almost a charity, but it's more like an investment firm. They were they weren't exactly doing it altruistically, but they were trying to funnel money into Malaysia for infrastructure and so on and so forth, so that they could invest industrially into it. And the prime minister channeled a whole bunch of money out of it, and then he had to step down. And the current prime minister is sitting now as a result to that scandal.
Huh.
And that actually continues to keep getting deeper. Goldman Sachs was attached to it, and apparently now Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank has already had a really interesting last couple of years in the news. However, the last week has been particularly concerning to the common people, in my opinion.
Where do you think Deutsche Bank sits as one of the biggest banks? And I do think a lot of people are familiar that Donald Trump has connections to Deutsche Bank, but where do you think it sits as a big bank?
It's really big. It's the biggest. I believe it's the biggest bank in Europe. I know it's the biggest bank in Japan or in Germany. Absolutely, it is the biggest bank in Germany for sure. I believe it's the biggest bank in Europe, and I think it's like number 5 in the world. It's huge. It's and because of how banks run, they're all each other's creditors. They all loan money to each other. They all take part in each other's products and services. They all do business with one another. So when one of these really big banks has serious issues like this, that tends to ripple across the entire economy, and it has been doing that. Deutsche Bank's problems have been rippling across the world economy, as has been kind of apparent by the fact that over the last 2 years, this will be the 4th bank that's closed on the 4th continent, if this one, or that it has serious problems or closed its doors in the last 2 years. And most of the problems for all of the other banks that have either failed or closed their doors or required a lot of assistance or some sort of restructuring over the last year, most of those problems have been based out of Deutsche Bank for the last 2 years. That's where, at least currently, like the Goldman Sachs of 2020, the 2020 recession, is Deutsche Bank. They were the ones that were being really, really irresponsible and
Have you ever heard of the term casino capitalism?
That's what's going on. That's it right there. They put bets on top of bets on top of bets, and then they were betting that their bets would win, and then they bet that their bet would win again. And then they continued to leverage everything across that, and then they lost. So, and then their bet didn't turn out the way they thought it would. So they lost a lot of money all at once, and there was a lot of concern as to whether or not it was solvent. And that's why they restructured and let go.
Should we have a little fun for a second and put a price value on the word casino capitalism?
I'm going to say $30.
Really?
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, $30.
Yeah, it's not that hard to get. I think people are underestimated by the media.
I agree.
That's
Absolutely.
why I brought it up in that framework.
Absolutely.
More
we all inherently
understand.
We all inherently understand this. We just, in a lot of ways, they do kind of talk down to you. They don't tell you precisely what's going on because they don't think you can handle it. That's obviously untrue. It's not that hard to understand. This guy had $100. He took $100 and he said, "I'm going to bet $100 that with this guy that he's gonna that the horse was going to make it first past the post, whichever horse it was. Let's call it Deutsches Prize. So Deutsches Prize is going to win the horse race, and he bet that Deutsches Prize is going to win the horse race against Bob here. Bob here, right? Bets his $100 too, but the guy only has $100, but he goes over to Paul and he bets him $100 too. And then he goes over to John and he bets him $100 too. And then he goes over to Larry and bets him $100 too. Well, then that horse doesn't win. So then he's out on the hook for $400 that he doesn't have.
All right, so both of us, we are political junkies. Like, we wouldn't have this channel if we weren't. How hard would you say it was to find this news and find details about it?
To find the real details, now it's a lot more like on the horizon. People have been talking about Deutsche Bank a little bit here and there for the last 2 years, but this this particular one, I when I hear about it on MSNBC, they talk about Epstein, which is a big story, don't get me wrong. It's a huge freaking story. They talk about Epstein, and then they give this like maybe 3 minutes, but Epstein objectively is a huge story, don't get me wrong. But the thing that you're going to feel, you, the person, the actual viewer that's consuming that news, the thing that your life is actually going to be affected by is Deutsche Bank.
It's not the stock market. It's not the stock market.
Oh.
We don't have stocks.
No, it's not the stock market. That's not how you're affected by Deutsche Bank. So you own a house, for example, and you've bought this house on a loan over anywhere in the last 20 years. You bought this house, right? Now, this house's value is actually inflated based on it's a bubble. Okay, it's an inflated value. So when nobody can buy that house anymore because nobody can get credit anymore because Deutsche Bank has tightened all of their credit down, and they need to, and it's a good, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when nobody can actually buy that house any longer, then the actual value of your house goes down. Now, what if you owe more money on that house than it's actually worth? Well, you've lost. So that's one way that it affects you. That's just one. But additionally, say, okay, say that, because we know that Deutsche Bank it does a lot of business with Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, so on and so forth. So say you've got a loan with Citigroup, and you're servicing that loan, and everything is fine, but it's on an adjustable rate, since they have not been gotten paid back by a lot of their debtors, including particularly that bank. They're going to have to increase their interest to make up the difference, which means that if you've got an adjustable rate, you're more than likely to pay more to service your debt. Say, now let's say, worst case scenario, Deutsche Bank is about to actually fail. And it's actually going to drop. All of those assets are gone. Everything is just going to poof. All of those trillions of dollars just right off the face of the planet. Now, all of the banks are now in the same position that the rest of the banks are all in the same position that Deutsche Bank is now, because they have a whole bunch of debt out there that they can't actually collect on. However, they have to pay interest on the debt that they loaned in the first place, which means that there would be a lot of concern about our banks becoming solvent, which then means that we might have to bail them out so that they continue to be solvent. At that point, the money actually has to come from nowhere, which means that they print that money, quantitative easing. There's more money produced out there chasing the same amount of products, which means that all of the money is worth less, and everybody will feel that. And that scenario that I just laid out is pretty likely. Deutsche Bank is out there because of irresponsible debt servicing. Other debtors couldn't pay them back. So now, if Deutsche Bank can't pay their creditors back, then we're all in the same position.
Okay. This actually sounds kind of a lot like what we've been talking about for years as concerned progressives. I hate using labels anymore. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or like skeptics. People.
Skeptics. There you go. Skeptics. That's a good one.
We've seen that this is not exactly tenable. Like that casino capitalism, like just and the printing of money instead of like the gold standard. Like this is kind of the way I saw like the economy falling apart. Is this the end of the world? Is this the beginning of the end of the world, I guess?
No, this isn't the beginning of the end of the world, but this is... I do feel that we are going to have... We have, in this nation right now, we've got a very divided population. We've got some serious issues with one another. We can't see eye to eye. So... And we're going to go through the same problems that we went through in 2008 at the same time that we can't see eye to eye. Now, in 2008, there was a little bit of a consensus. You know, it wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't as bad. We were going to sort of, in essence, get through this together and just have to do what we have to do. It sucked. That's the way it was. This time around, I don't think we've got that anymore. So I do feel that there's a little bit of danger. We are going to have a contentious election in the same year that we have a pretty major economic crash going on at the same time, and it's all really contentious right now, and we've been screaming at each other. It is a powder keg. I will concede that. It could very easily go bad from this moment. A lot of, historically speaking, people go nuts when they're hungry.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Not Televised Revolution. We're not afraid to say what we really feel about the consequences of the news that we read.
That's it. I don't think that we're going to starve here in the U.S. We provide too much of the world's food to do that. But
if you want to call it food.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but still, our stomachs will be full. But that said, like, beyond that, man, all bets are off. Who knows?
All right, where do you want to go from here?
Well, you had a story, right?
I still wanted to take a quick look at One Malaysia Development Berhad. I'm still really confused about this. So, on Wikipedia, the one which Wikipedia is like the internet itself. Like it started with such promise and it delivered, but now it's not the same as it used to be. So I want everyone to. If you're watching this, you already realize that. But anyways, the One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal, or 1MDB scandal, is an ongoing political scandal occurring in Malaysia. In 2015, the Prime Minister was accused of channeling $700 million from Malaysia to Berhad.
So yeah, the is a government-run strategic development company that what they want to do is they want to invest in infrastructure in Malaysia so that they can, in essence, I mean, let's call a spade, so that they can exploit the Malaysian people, pay them pennies on the dollar, and move, textiles and other and Nikes and so on and so forth over into Malaysia. A lot of that's already there, but
I figured out a really good way to ask you this question. Okay. Is this communism or is this capitalist socialism? Social capitalism. Whatever.
So
capitalism for the socialists but not for the people. Or socialism for the capitalists but not for the people.
So, well, this is kind of the flow of capital going into Malaysia is definitely not going to the people per se. That said, in the beginning, this is actually how it works. In the very beginning, capitalism isn't necessarily a bad thing. You bring in you bring in a lot of business. You get people out of poverty. You start spurning growth. But even John Smith says that there needs to be something beyond that. Sooner or later, there will be winners or losers, and those when you've got a system that's kind of based on competition, even though the invisible hand will push that development to the invisible hand, as John Smith says, the market's invisible hand will push that development, but after a certain point, it's going to push it over a cliff. And a lot of people forget that about John Smith, Adam Smith. My bad, guys. A lot of people forget that about Adam Smith, that he was pretty objective about what he was saying. Sooner or later, this invisible hand will just continue to push you in a direction, and for a while it's good, but after a while, I what's the term that exactly the exact term that he uses is the vile doctrine. Sooner or later, men in power, the followers of the vile doctrine, which is more for me, less for everyone else. Fuck society, fuck everything. I just want everything I can get. That's the vile doctrine, as far as Adam Smith was concerned. Sooner or later, the people that follow the vile doctrine will grab hold of society using the same invisible hand.
Right. We said it was off camera, but it was really good. Like, if you we were talking about our anarchy jam. No, we actually said it on our anarchy jam. Like, if you're so afraid of anarchy that you can't trust your neighbor, then why would you trust elected officials? And when it comes to banking, these are unelected officials. They don't have any accountability, but we have accounts with them.
Theoretically, their accountability is the fact that we get to choose. But that's not precisely true, really. When it really comes down to it, in the United States, there's 12 banks. 12. That's it. If they all basically follow the same practices, well, then what choice do you have? And of course, that's only 12 guys that have to sit in the room and talk to each other. And they don't really have to compete anymore. In fact, it's in their interest if they don't. In fact, most banks cooperate with each other. They don't compete at all. And they do that openly. Actually, we just described that about Deutsche Bank. They all lend each other money. They all, they all know each other. They're friends. All banks worldwide. They're all friends.
What's the name of the guy that used to be the head of the World Bank?
Alan Greenspan?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's the most famous douche nozzle. Most people know who Greenspan is. He was the one that was the head of the head of the Federal Reserve for most of my lifetime. I think Reagan put him in, and then he stayed all the way through the middle of Obama.
So I'm starting to agree with you. Like, should we all be really afraid to continue to trust the U.S. dollar?
No. You shouldn't be trusting the dollar, but it doesn't really have much to do with Deutsche Bank at this time. Those two things are going to relate, and if Deutsche Bank blows up at the wrong time, then that'll actually extend the life of the dollar a little bit, because that's happening in Germany. It will. It'll make the euro not quite as competitive to the dollar in the market. It'll actually extend the life of it a little bit, but the euro. If the euro is going to be probably the next competing currency for the dollar's position, because Trump pulled out of the Iran deal. Now, China has been using gold to trade with Iran for a long time. So is Russia, and now the European Union is creating a competing system with the SWIFT system, the competing system with the dollar for international transactions. Well, international transactions are what makes the dollar special. That's why we can take pieces of paper that everybody wants. But but when we pulled out of the Iran deal, now our European allies are trying to go around the dollar, which is probably the biggest, more than anything else. Our friends turning their back on us is the biggest threat to America at this time. China is nothing comparatively. And when the dollar is no longer the world reserve currency, all of those dollars that used to be out offshore are going to be here, and we're going to have some serious house cleaning with our economy to make that work again. Man, I honestly don't. I don't think the elites, have a plan for what might happen if the dollar isn't the world reserve currency anymore. I don't think they have one. I've never heard them mention the idea that it might not be that way tomorrow, ever.
All right, let's touch on Bitcoin for a second.
Bitcoin is a very good concept. I like Bitcoin. I did a little bit of stuff with Bitcoin early on, and I turned a little profit on it, I have to admit. Bitcoin is soaring right now, and so if you want to, it does have a pretty big. You have to have a lot of money to get into the Bitcoin market. Already, you have to have like a lot of capital to actually throw yourself into it. Gold has a much smaller limit to get into. You can get into the gold market much easier with like a lot less money. But both commodities are soaring. They're both very good. Bitcoin does come with a little bit more systemic risk than gold, because I believe in it. Don't get me wrong, I believe in it, but that's
just the same thing as the printed dollars, the fiat currency.
Except that you can't actually print a Bitcoin. A Bitcoin is produced only at a time in which it's necessary. Only when it's relevant. A Bitcoin can only be produced when it's relevant, period. Nobody has control of that. Nobody just like hits a button and boom, there's Bitcoins there now. It doesn't work like that. That's what blockchain's about. It's electronic scarcity. Bitcoins are scarce, and they're purposely that way, and they're going to continue to be that way.
Right, and the blockchain means that many computers around the world have the same record of your transaction, so that no one can really just steal your credit card. You can only find one person to help you out. Like on the blockchain, everyone is helping you out. Like I love it.
It's true, and I mean, there is the danger of Bitcoin turning into another fiat, just like what there is. There has actually been a company who was a large-scale miner who lost millions of dollars. This happened probably 4 months ago, and they lost millions of dollars because somebody took a wallet that wasn't theirs. They got hacked. Blah 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 blah. They took off with a whole bunch of coins, and so then when they were bouncing around and everything like that, they were trying to track it. And one of the things that they suggested is that they would just back up before to freaking that registry, as well as several other registries around them, would just back up to a point before that took place. Which means that if they can all agree on it, they could do something like that. Which does, and that means that even though that particular seat of power is currently a council, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be condensed into one. Like we used to have 500 media companies, now we have 3, or now we have 6.
All right. This is what's great about freestyling is I just found breaking news from an hour ago. I'll send you a link.
Please.
There it is. Okay, so Trump blasts Bitcoin and says cryptocurrencies, including Facebook's Libra, should be subject to all banking regulations.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the system was never perfect, and we're seeing the cracks. And
oh yeah.
Once a dam has a crack in it, that water starts coming out.
Oh yeah. It is. This is pretty interesting. And I actually think that this doesn't really affect Bitcoin all that much, but it will affect Libra. Bitcoin's really hard to regulate. Yeah, maybe we don't
because of the blockchain.
Because of the blockchain. You can regulate the shit. You can say whatever it is, but this is what it is. This is how Bitcoin works, period. You can say all the things that you want to do it, but most of the people that actually use Bitcoin are outside of U.S. jurisdiction anyway. And, so an American citizen may not be able to own Bitcoin, except for the fact that an American citizen owns Bitcoin and that Bitcoin happens to sit in a wallet that's in Jamaica, nobody knows. Everybody knows that rich people put their stuff offshore. You can do that too.
All right, I kind of want to tie up this segment with this quote by Trump. You can of course comment if you want. Trump says, "We have only one real currency in the USA, and it is stronger than ever, both dependable and reliable." Of course, on a tweet. So I mean, doesn't that just make it?
The irony in it is that Trump is the person that did the self-inflicted wound that will be the end of the dollar.
It is by far the most dominant currency anywhere in the world, and it will always stay that way. Yeah, it's called the United States dollar.
Trump's the one that actually ended that. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm telling you, just because the European Union created the system that competes with the dollar, and I promise you the world is sick of our shit. If they can get away from the dollar, they will.
Right, yeah, Trump does all kind of things just out of spite and no concern for humanity at all. And
yeah, but I mean, it's not just Trump. It's Obama. It's everybody behind him. Everybody behind him too. We've been acting like a spoiled brat on the world stage since Reagan, really. And it's gotten really, really, really heightened since the USSR fell. We've been acting like complete assholes. I wouldn't want to do business with us anymore.
All right. I am scared. All right, and I hope everyone out there is scared, and I hope that's what you came here to be. But we do have another.
Okay, good news. We're not going to starve. We're not going to starve. Yeah. That ain't going to happen. We're not going to starve. We're not. We produce all of our own needs. We do. We produce our own food. We produce our own oil. We're not going to starve.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you. Like, even if the rest of the world dumps the petrodollar, which, just real quick, we call it the petrodollar because America made Saudi Arabia sell their oil in dollars, American dollars.
And that's why it's the dominant currency.
Right, because you have to buy oil with American dollars, but the future is coming, and it's coming fast. Like it's a dizzying world that we're in, and for us to even attempt to break it down for you, come on, this is heroic what we're doing.
We might be able to save the dollar if we get rid of Trump, but even then, eventually, the euro will compete with the dollar. It's just going to happen. It's inevitable. That's how markets work.
All right. I think I have a segue for that. Let's go to the marketplace of ideas. You know where I'm going, right?
Maybe.
All right, I sent you a link to Bernie Sanders made his own website.
Oh, you sent this yesterday.
Yep. It's on your Discord.
Yeah, let me find it real quick.
So Bernie Sanders set up a whole page of people that are against him. And these two stories, in my mind, really tie together a lot. Because Bernie Sanders is trying to save the world because he understands a lot of things. And
anti-endorsements. Yes.
Right.
I remember this. Yes.
And all of the people on this list are the people we were just talking about. Profit for me today and forget about my kids tomorrow. Like, all of these people are on this list. And many, 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 many more.
Oh, yeah. I like... Yeah, I've Andy Pudzer. I think that guy's name is freaking appropriate. I have to throw that out. Andy Pudzer.
All right, you know? I brought my extra keyboard for a reason. Andy Pudzer.
He's angry about minimum wage.
Oh my god. I almost vomited on my keyboard. Yeah. This guy is not even cute either.
No.
Attorney, author, and business. What did he write? Chief executive of CKE Restaurants. Oh, the parent company of Hardee's and Carl's Jr. They had a big fallout recently with their employees, right?
Yeah, they did.
Why does he hate Bernie? Why do you think he hates Bernie? Because he wants him to pay his employees, maybe?
Minimum wage. I promise it's minimum wage.
Yep.
Andy Pudzer. Man, I get it. I understand. Like, man, I'd be pretty mad too if I went through high school with that name, man.
Well, and the cool thing about this is these are actually Bernie and probably his staff's picks for who they decided to highlight. So,
yeah,
obviously, people hate him.
Yeah, and I mean that's true. I still am a Tulsi supporter. I'm not. I mean I like Bernie a lot. I'm happy if he was the nominee. I'd be happy, but.
We're gonna have to go through this every time. Just kidding. I'm still way behind Bernie, and I think this is even more evidence. Like even Haim Saban, does that name ring a bell to you?
Not right off the top of my head. Is he
Just focus on the last name.
Saban?
Yeah.
Man, that sounds familiar, but I can't.
You can do it.
I could.
Make yourself 12 years old and try again. Go Power Rangers.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
For real?
Yeah. He produced that show, and all the Power Rangers were basically paid minimum wage. Not allowed to unionize.
I did know that they were paid very, very little. I did know
Look what he says here. I love all 23 candidates. No, -1. I profoundly dislike Bernie Sanders. He thinks that every billionaire is a crook. He calls us the billionaire class. Wow. Attacks us indiscriminately. Okay,
I'm sorry, but I just don't feel like you are the victim. I mean...
I think we can probably agree on this, and this is something I'll stand behind on every episode of every show I ever do. If you're a billionaire, you're a crook. You stole from your workers. You did not earn $1 billion.
Somewhere down the line, yeah. There's nobody who's actually produced enough goods to create $1 million. However,
no, I'm talking about $1 billion. $1 million is possible. But
Okay,
billion, no.
yeah, I apologize. Actually, I know somebody who produced enough goods with his own hands to make
Yeah,
himself
that's
a millionaire.
possible.
However, freaking a billionaire, no, there's no way that can be done. Not in a lifetime.
Unless you happen to be 1,000 badass mofos all wrapped into one.
Yeah. It's it just doesn't happen. But what you can do is you can steal, in essence, steal the surplus of a whole bunch of other workers, and through that make $1 billion.
Just like Kenneth Langon has a net worth of $3.7 billion. Home Depot pays wages so low that many of its workers are forced to rely on food stamps.
And most of those guys are actual professionals too. Like the guys from Home Depot, like the guy.
Yeah,
in the
they can actually.
aisle.
You can go into my friend in the construction business calls it a deep homo. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But you can go in there and you can get some real help.
Yeah, generally, not always, but generally.
Yeah. $9 an hour.
Like that guy's a real professional. Sometimes he's been doing, what he's in the department to do for years and years and years.
Yeah, I mean, they're selling tools because they love tools and working with them. I mean, it's not for the $9 an hour.
No.
It's because they like to work.
A good friend of mine hurt himself on the job. He was a tinner, and hurt himself on the job. Couldn't really do it anymore, and so then he had to go to work for Home Depot. He openly said that he felt exploited, like he felt like he got hurt, so therefore he was like he just didn't have that experience anymore. It just didn't matter anymore. Like all that, his entire freaking all of his career and everything, it just didn't matter. It was just thrown away. It was kind of fucked up how he described it. I wish I could quote him. But how he described it to me, it was pretty fucked up.
So, all right, you threw in a Tulsi, so I got to throw in a Bernie. These people hate Bernie because Bernie fights for the working class, and he does a really good job of it. Lowell McAdam, as the CEO of Verizon, McAdam made almost $20 million a year in compensation, while fighting to take away healthcare benefits from his employees and outsourcing thousands of jobs to low-wage countries. While Verizon made over $42.4 billion in U.S. profits in 5 years, it received a tax refund of $732 million from the IRS.
I mean,
it's supposed to be exactly pretty much the other way around, isn't it?
Well,
we should get some $42.4 billion in 5 years. I think that's just.
I mean, for Verizon and Verizon's profit in a single year, $42 billion isn't
5 years.
Over 5 years, $42 billion. That's actually not too much. That's less than $10 billion a year. Like for example,
no, that's his profit.
AT&T just
not the company.
I think AT&T just posted.
Not the company. That's just
just his personal over 5 years.
Yes.
The money.
Man, you can't even spend that. How can you spend it?
I wonder how many.
Okay, so he gets $20 million a year. He gets $20 million a year. Okay, you were right. So it was 42.4 over 5 years. But still, it's just.
It is kind of ludicrous. Like, if like everybody just want if it were to make sense for me in the short term to walk up to you and tear your nose off, right? That almost makes a little bit of sense, right? But if everybody behaves in a way that we're just freaking tearing into each other's faces, we all just end up faceless, man. There's got to be a little bit. Your company can't just be based around entirely profit. There has to be community service in part of it. If it's all about profit over everything else and anything else, and everybody thinks that that's the way it should be, but it's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for us. These things are alive just like we are. A company actually kind of is alive. It continues to breathe and grow and everything like that. And if we make them animals, they're going to be animals. We can make them whatever we want to make them. Do something cool with it. Fuck. It's just me.
Yeah, no, you actually stated it really, really well. Like, we're letting corporate greed want to run away with itself to the point where it basically is all these people with the ability just run around and rip each other's noses off.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we're acting like animals. We're creating these huge corporate conglomerates that act like animals. They don't care about anything else. They just don't care. And it really isn't. It's I don't know. It's hard to describe. It feels incredibly self-defeating.
So in a really big way, the two stories that we've talked about today tie in really well with each other. It's because they're both about capitalism and how it's not working and how we're seeing the cracks. We're seeing the income inequality. We're seeing the blowback against the petrodollar. We're seeing the fight for $15 an hour, which it should actually be more like 21.
I'd like to push back on the idea that this is capitalism.
Okay,
I don't think that this is anything like. I don't think that this is anything like capitalism.
No, this is kleptocracy, is what it is.
I like to call a spade, man. This is a fascism. Our economic system is entirely fascism. It's not the differences between Nazi Germany, economically speaking, and the USSR, economically speaking. The differences are very minor. We have a group of people who are very, 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 very powerful and influential, and they collude and collect together to make sure that the people on the bottom stay there and the people on the top stay there. And that's, both Nazi Germany and the USSR shared that in common. But what's crazy about it? So do we. And we do it in a way that looks a lot, the only difference between the two is how they said that it was organized, even though it wasn't organized that way, but it's just how they pretended it to be organized. We actually are pretty openly organized in the same way that they said that they organized themselves in Germany in the 40s. We're open about it. And I think it's hilarious that we all call each other fascists. Like, that's not a pot kettle situation. Just saying.
Right, no, I do have to agree with you, and I want to start wrapping it up on this. I kind of prefer to call it a kleptocracy because, like, the people that are the best at stealing are the ones in charge. You know what I mean?
I totally get where you're coming from. I really do. But, like, Volkswagen, okay? The person that owned Volkswagen was actually there sitting at the table eating dinner with Hitler. That's the situation that we're in. The person who owns GM is actually sitting there with the Congress people eating dinner. They know each other. They go to each other's weddings. Blah, 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 blah. It's a big club. That's what fascism is. Yeah, and you ain't in it. Absolutely.
Wow.
That's what it is. I understand where you're coming from, but Mussolini, the guy who actually coined the word fascism, says it's corporatism. It's when the state and the government, or it's when the state and corporations collude to keep power. That's all it is. And that was Mussolini, the first fascist. He's the one that said it.
Well, the internet connection saved me from having to edit that one. Any final thoughts? It's been a heavy episode, actually. We covered a lot.
It has, but you know, when you pointed to it's a big club and you ain't in it, I'm gonna throw one more George Carlin quote out there, just to kind of hammer home my point that I just made. One more George Carlin quote is, Germany may have lost World War II, but fascism won it. Don't forget that.
All right, people, make sure you go back to our Freestyle Anarchy Jam and take a look at what we think humans can actually be like. And thanks for watching, and we love you, and like and subscribe and share. And we're going to grow, we're going to get better.
We're growing every week. We get better at this every time. I'm loving you guys. You have a good day. Good night.
Much love.